some officers, their involvement with the case terminates after the court's judgment. But for others, it's just the beginning. It can be a long way from the start of a transport assignment to its completion. Transport of prisoners is a specialized function which must be performed by personnel whose emotional and physical capabilities will ensure the successful completion of such an assignment. The selection of personnel is only a first step, though. Proper training is required to make certain that the task is accomplished with efficiency and safety. A specially equipped station wagon is a commonly used type of transport vehicle. It is equipped with security bars and a rear screen, and a plastic bubble behind the front seat protect the officers. Every police department should have available a sedan especially equipped for transport with a dividing screen and special door locks. Installing a hood lock will eliminate tampering with the motor, and a lock on the gas tank also serves a good purpose. To use a vehicle not equipped with a screen, the officer should either reverse his holster so his weapon is away from the prisoner, or give it to the driver who will place it out of reach for the duration of the trip. The prisoner sits to the right of the officer, who sits behind the driver. Many larger police agencies have especially equipped buses for prisoner transport. The buses feature a two-way radio hookup and protective screens and barred windows to isolate prisoners. Commercial airlines can sometimes be used for transporting prisoners, but generally will not allow a prisoner to travel in restraint equipment and require that the officer turn his weapon over to the pilot during the flight. A check with the airline security officer will determine the procedures required. One means of transport being used with more regularity is smaller aircraft. Either deputized private operators trained in prisoner transport or aircraft owned by one or several police agencies provide an ideal method of moving a prisoner over long distances or when time is a factor. In either case, arrangements for the removal of the prisoner at the destination should be made well in advance. Restraint equipment is vital to safe prisoner transport. Handcuffs are the most common restraint equipment used, but even double locked, they are far from being an infallible restraint. In transport, hands are cuffed in front, so a waist belt is used to immobilize the prisoner's arms. Since leather waist belts can be cut, chain waist belts are preferred. This type, with integral cuffs, keep the prisoner's hands apart, making any manipulation more difficult. The extra length of chain can be attached to leg irons or used as a lead chain. Leg irons or leather hobbles should also be used to further immobilize the prisoner. Extra chain and Yale locks may be used in various ways as the situation requires. A prisoner should always be properly restrained, no matter how short a distance he's moved. Hands are never cuffed in front unless a waist belt is used. And don't underestimate the capabilities of a prisoner because of size or apparent meekness. Never leave the prisoner alone. And don't expect the handcuffs to do the whole job. They are simply a mechanical device to add to the security of the prisoner. Keep in mind that a restrained prisoner is still dangerous. In small communities where people usually know each other and the man on the beat knows the kids, relations are close. Then the unexpected happens, and someone you've known and liked is in trouble. Your personal feelings cannot be allowed to interfere with your duty. Don't grant any special requests. You might not think that boy you've known for so long would give you any trouble. But then, you probably never thought he'd be a felon either. Regard every prisoner as a possible risk, no matter how minor the charges. Transportation usually begins from a holding cell. The prisoner is called out and required to discard his clothing and submit to a thorough search. The transporting officers should take upon themselves the responsibility of that search. While one officer conducts the search, the other should question the jailer as to any observed peculiarities evinced by the prisoner. All body cavities can be and have been utilized as areas of concealment. The emphasis must be on everything. Men faced with years in prison are to be considered dangerous. Many will take any risk if it offers an escape possibility. The fact of being in jail doesn't limit their ability to use what's available towards gaining that freedom. A little tape, a blade to cut through a leather waist belt, or worse, to injure an officer, and a metal ballpoint filler fashioned into a handcuff key. The elements of escape, just simple, everyday things, but in the wrong hands. Examine carefully the discarded clothing, as the discovery of an escape implement, even though not successfully passed, will specifically underline the attitude of the prisoner. Because many departments allow inmates to wear their own shoes, the officer should give them special attention. Jeweler's string, capable of cutting through bars, and a bit of water and some flour stolen from the kitchen to hold the insole firmly in place over money that could help the prisoner elude recapture. As one officer searches the prisoner, the other officer places the prisoner's property in a large manila envelope, checking the contents against the receipt given the prisoner when he was arrested. The vehicle to be used for transport should be checked for emergency equipment, such as first aid kit and flares. The rear seat area should be carefully inspected for anything that could be used as an implement to escape. Don't forget the ashtrays. After the skin search has been completed, the prisoner should be moved to another area. Rather than allowing the prisoner to wear civilian clothes, it is advisable to clothe him in issued apparel, which should consist of thin sandals, unsuitable for running, coveralls with a red P to identify the wearer as a prisoner, and the coverall pockets sewn up to make concealment impossible. Even issued clothing should be carefully checked. Take no chances. At all times, officers must cover each other so that the prisoner will not be tempted to make untoward moves. Usually, for long trips, the prisoner is manacled hands to the front. It is recommended that chain waist belts be used. The cuffs should be double locked. Once the prisoner's arms are secured, then the hobbles or leg irons are fitted. With the prisoner fully restrained and guarded by one officer, each officer in turn retrieves his weapon, which has been kept by the jailer. Before starting a trip, the prisoner should be fed and have used the restroom in order to minimize stops en route. When moving him from the jail to the transport car, he should be kept away from crowds or curious onlookers. A prisoner is never manacled to any part of the vehicle. The proposed route should be submitted to your superior, but do not advertise it. Stops for eating should be planned in advance, and the local police notified as to the approximate time of arrival, and possibly the local agency could suggest an appropriate place. Avoid walk-in restaurants. Drive-in restaurants are best suited for the feeding of prisoners. The restraint equipment can be modified for eating, but no more than is necessary. And order food that doesn't require silverware. Restroom relief is usually requested after meals. Don't remain at the drive-in for this purpose. It is better to change the location and be unpredictable in making such stops. Before allowing a prisoner to enter a restroom, it should first be checked by one of the officers. While one officer escorts the prisoner into the restroom, the other officer remains outside and keeps alert. If it is necessary to remove the restraint equipment inside the restroom, the escorting officer should leave his weapon outside with his partner. Don't provoke the prisoner, either by actions or comments. If it is planned to lay over en route, arrangements should be made in advance with the local police department for the housing of the prisoner. The prisoner should be isolated from other prisoners, as they will help each other. Before resuming the trip, another thorough skin search should be made. The escorting officer should always sit in a position where he can observe the prisoner. Alertness is the keynote. Alertness to exterior conditions and the prisoner's actions. For instance, maybe a car is following closely for several miles. Whatever the situation, anything suspicious should be immediately reported. If outside your own jurisdiction, the local police or the highway patrol should be informed. They will in turn notify their own field units for assistance. In any case, it is important to keep the transport vehicle moving, even if it's necessary to change the route to avoid stalled traffic or highway construction. It may be nothing, but it should be checked out. The period near the end of the trip is the most dangerous because while the prisoner becomes more and more apprehensive, the officer may tend to relax. He must, on the contrary, be especially alert as the destination is near. Prisoner transport is a demanding duty, not a reward or a special favor. It is a tiring and essential function of the peace officer, which affords no opportunity for relaxation during the course of the assignment. Transport ends only when custody is accepted by the receiving agency.